The overflowing cup. We live in an age where more has become the answer to everything. More information. More opinions. More advice. More voices telling us what success should look like, and who we must become to achieve it. Every single day, we fill our minds with endless facts, impossible expectations, constant comparisons, and countless solutions to problems we haven't even faced. We save articles we never read. Watch videos we never apply. Listen to people whose lives we don't truly understand. Always searching. Always collecting. Always believing that the next lesson, the next book, or the next piece of advice will finally transform our lives. Yet, the more we gather, the heavier we become. It's as though we're carrying an invisible mountain on our backs while wondering why every step forward feels so difficult. Have you ever noticed that no matter how much you learn, something inside you still refuses to rest? Perhaps your soul isn't empty. Perhaps it's simply overcrowded. Crowded with old fears. Painful memories. Rigid opinions. Unspoken disappointments. And the version of yourself you've spent years trying to protect. My name is Howard, and today I want to tell you the story of a man who possessed more knowledge than almost anyone in his kingdom. Yet could not discover the one thing his heart longed for most. Peace. This is a story for anyone trapped by yesterday, exhausted by endless overthinking, or secretly afraid to admit they don't have every answer. This is the story of the overflowing cup. Long ago, beyond a chain of mist-covered mountains, stood a prosperous kingdom renowned for its scholars and philosophers. Among them lived a man named Adrian. From childhood, Adrian possessed a mind unlike any other. He could memorize entire pages after reading them only once. While other children laughed beside rivers or chased butterflies through green fields, Adrian sat beneath an ancient cedar tree, absorbed in books about philosophy, history, astronomy, and the mysteries of human existence. Knowledge wasn't simply his passion. It became his identity. As the years passed, his hunger to learn only grew stronger. He spent decades inside magnificent libraries, surrounded by shelves overflowing with ancient scrolls and forgotten manuscripts. He mastered long-lost languages. Studied civilizations that had disappeared centuries before. Memorized sacred writings. Debated the greatest thinkers of his generation. Eventually, Adrian began writing books of his own. Books about morality, the soul, human nature, and the invisible principles that govern life itself. His reputation spread throughout the kingdom. Kings sought his counsel before making important decisions. Powerful families competed for the privilege of hosting him in their homes. Students traveled for weeks, sometimes months, just to hear him speak for a single afternoon. Whenever Adrian entered a room, conversation stopped. Every eye turned toward him. Every word he spoke carried enormous weight. To the world, Adrian had become the very definition of wisdom. But inside the silence that followed every applause, he heard something no one else could hear. A quiet emptiness. An ache that refused to disappear. Every accomplishment satisfied him for only a moment before another question appeared. Another mystery. Another goal. Another mountain to climb. The more knowledge he acquired, the less peace he possessed. His mind never rested. It analyzed everything. Compared everything. Judged everything. Even on calm evenings, while rain gently tapped against his window, Adrian couldn't simply enjoy its soothing rhythm. Instead, he wondered where the clouds had formed. How the storm had developed. And what invisible forces controlled the weather. When birds sang outside his study, he never paused to appreciate their melody. He tried to identify their species. Their migration patterns. Their habits. Everything became something to examine. Nothing remained something to simply experience. When friends came to him carrying heavy hearts, Adrian rarely offered comfort. Instead, he offered explanations. He could describe peace with remarkable brilliance. But he had never truly felt it. And although the world admired him as one of the wisest men alive, deep inside, Adrian was exhausted. The Overflowing Cup, Part 2. One bitter winter morning, while visiting the kingdom's marketplace, Adrian overheard a group of weary travelers speaking in hushed voices. They weren't discussing politics. They weren't talking about war. They were speaking about an old master who lived alone on a remote mountain known as the Peak of Clouds. According to the travelers, the old man owned almost nothing. He had written no famous books. He served no king. He accepted no wealth and sought no recognition. Yet people who climbed the mountain to meet him always returned transformed. Not richer. Not more powerful. But strangely peaceful. Their eyes carried a quiet confidence. Their hearts seemed lighter. And their smiles no longer looked forced. Some even whispered that the old master had discovered the true secret of enlightenment. Adrian couldn't help but smile. How could a man who has spent his entire life hidden on a mountain possibly understand more than those who have devoted their lives to study, he thought. I have read the greatest philosophers in history. I have debated the brightest minds in the kingdom. What could this old hermit possibly teach me? Still, the story refused to leave his mind. That night, sleep escaped him. The cold wind rattled against the windows of his study as he stared into the dying flames of the fireplace. For years, he had silenced a question buried deep inside his heart. But now it rose again with undeniable force. What if knowledge alone isn't enough? What if I've spent my entire life collecting answers while missing the one thing that truly matters? For the first time in many years, Adrian questioned himself. Several days later, he packed a small bag. Inside were a few carefully chosen scrolls, several notebooks filled with his life's work, and a handful of books he considered priceless. Then he began the long climb toward the peak of clouds. The journey was far more difficult than he had imagined. The narrow trails twisted around steep cliffs. The mountain air grew thinner with every step. Sharp winds cut through his expensive robes until his hands trembled from the cold. More than once, Adrian considered turning back. His pride reminded him who he was. A respected scholar should not wander through mountains searching for answers from a stranger, his mind whispered. You are the teacher, not the student. But something deeper than pride kept moving his feet. It wasn't curiosity alone. It was longing. A longing he had hidden beneath years of achievement. After several exhausting days, Adrian finally reached the summit. There was no magnificent temple. No marble pillars. No crowds waiting outside. No disciples chanting sacred words. Only a small wooden cottage overlooking an endless valley painted with forests, rivers, and drifting clouds. Nearby, an elderly man quietly tended a modest garden. His clothes were faded from years of wear. His hands were stained with soil. Long silver hair danced gently in the mountain breeze. He moved slowly, yet every movement seemed effortless. There was no hurry in him. No tension. Only peace. Adrian looked around in disbelief. Are you the master people travel so far to see? He asked. The old man smiled warmly. I am simply an old gardener, he replied. But if you've come a long way, you must be tired. Please. Come inside. The cottage was as simple as its owner. A small fire crackled quietly in one corner. Golden sunlight poured through an open window. Two worn cushions rested on opposite sides of a wooden table that had clearly survived many years. Nothing about the room suggested greatness. Yet somehow, everything about it felt alive. Adrian sat down, carefully straightened his robes, and without waiting for a single question, began speaking. He described his childhood brilliance. His education. The libraries he had mastered. The kings who sought his advice. The books he had written. The debates he had won. He spoke about philosophy. Morality. The soul. The mysteries of the universe. His words flowed like a river that had been waiting years to burst its banks. The old master listened quietly. He never interrupted. He never nodded in approval. He never argued. At first, Adrian mistook the silence for admiration. But as the minutes stretched into an hour, the silence became uncomfortable. Determined to prove the depth of his wisdom, Adrian spoke even faster. His language became more complex. His explanations more impressive. He wanted the old man to recognize just how extraordinary he was. Finally, the master gently raised one hand. Your journey must have been exhausting, he said with a gentle smile. Would you care for a cup of tea? Adrian paused. Part of him felt irritated. After everything he had shared, was the old man truly thinking about tea? Still, he nodded politely. He had no idea that the next few moments would change the course of his entire life. The Overflowing Cup, Part 3. The old master walked quietly toward a small clay stove where a kettle rested above glowing embers. Without saying a word, he carefully prepared the tea. He rinsed the leaves with warm water. He warmed 2 simple clay cups. Every movement was slow, deliberate, almost like a form of meditation. Adrian watched impatiently. His fingers tapped softly against the wooden table. His mind was elsewhere. He wasn't interested in tea. He had climbed a mountain in search of wisdom, not refreshments. Why is he taking so long? He wondered. Does he not understand the importance of our conversation? Does he not wish to hear my thoughts on the nature of truth, or the mysteries of existence? At last, the master returned and placed a small cup before Adrian. The fragrant aroma of freshly brewed tea rose gently into the quiet room. The master lifted the teapot. A thin stream of golden tea flowed into the cup. Half full. Then 3/4. Then nearly to the brim. Adrian waited for him to stop. But he didn't. The tea reached the edge. Then spilled over. It ran across the table. It soaked Adrian's sleeve. Drops splashed onto the wooden floor. Still. The old master continued pouring. Adrian leaped to his feet. Stop. What are you doing? The cup is already full. It can't hold any more. Only then did the master slowly set the teapot down. Silence filled the room. The only sound was the gentle drip. 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 Of tea falling from the table onto the floor. The old man looked calmly into Adrian's eyes. Then he smiled. This cup is very much like your mind. Adrian frowned but remained silent. You have filled yourself with opinions. With achievements. With certainty. With memories. And with the belief that you already understand. You have come here asking for wisdom. But there is no room left inside you to receive it. The word struck Adrian harder than any insult ever could. The master continued gently. You do not listen in order to understand. You listen so you can reply. You do not ask questions because you are curious. You ask them so you can display the answers you already possess. There was no anger in the master's voice. No pride. No judgment. Only compassion. And somehow, that kindness made the truth impossible to escape. The old man leaned forward slightly. Tell me. How can I pour fresh tea into a cup that is already overflowing? And how can life teach someone who believes there is nothing left to learn? Adrian lowered his eyes. For the first time in many years, he had no answer. His gaze drifted toward the scrolls he had carried all the way up the mountain. For years they had been symbols of success. Proof of intelligence. Evidence of a life well lived. But now, they looked different. They looked heavy. Like stones he had carried on his back for decades. Slowly, painful truths began rising from places he had buried long ago. He realized he had spent his life chasing admiration because he feared being ordinary. He collected knowledge because it made him feel important. He corrected others because admitting ignorance terrified him. He wore wisdom like armor. Not because he was at peace. But because he was afraid. Afraid of not being enough. Afraid of being wrong. Afraid that if people stopped calling him wise, they might stop valuing him altogether. Tears quietly formed in his eyes. Not tears of shame. But tears of awakening. His voice trembled as he finally whispered. Then tell me. How do I empty my cup? The old master smiled warmly. You do not empty it by forgetting everything you have learned. You empty it by releasing your attachment to being right. You empty it by becoming willing to see the world with fresh eyes. By accepting that every person you meet, every experience you have, and every single day you are given, has something new to teach you. He paused before adding one final sentence. The wisest person is not the one who knows the most. It is the one who never stops learning. Those words settled deep inside Adrian's heart. For the first time since he was a child, he felt no need to impress anyone. No need to prove himself. No need to defend his reputation. He simply sat in silence, holding an empty cup. And for the first time in his life, it no longer frightened him. Camera with flash the overflowing cup, Part 4, Final. Adrian remained in the master's humble cottage for several more days. But this time, he did not come as a celebrated scholar. He came as a student. Instead of filling every silence with words, he allowed himself to simply listen. He listened to the crackling fire that warmed the little room. He listened to the whisper of the mountain wind as it danced through the cedar trees. He listened to the gentle rhythm of the rain falling on the wooden roof. And for the first time in many years, he listened to his own heart. Each day, the old master shared simple lessons, not through long speeches or complicated philosophies, but through ordinary moments. While tending the garden, he said, "A tree never struggles to prove it is growing. It simply grows." While watching the clouds drift across the sky, he smiled and whispered, "Peace is not something you chase. It is something you stop running away from." As they shared quiet meals together, he reminded Adrian, "Real wisdom is not measured by how much you can explain, but by how deeply you can understand." Little by little, something inside Adrian began to change. The constant noise in his mind grew quieter. The endless need to analyze every situation slowly faded. The burden he had carried for so many years became lighter. He discovered that silence was not empty. It was full of answers that could never be heard by a restless mind. Several days later, Adrian began his journey back down the mountain. He carried the same bag, the same books, the same scrolls. Nothing about his possessions had changed. But everything about him had. When he returned to the kingdom, people immediately noticed the difference. He spoke less. But every word carried greater weight. He no longer hurried to prove a point. He no longer interrupted others to display his knowledge. Instead, he listened with genuine curiosity. When someone came to him burdened with sorrow, he didn't rush to explain their suffering. He simply sat beside them. Sometimes, his quiet presence brought more healing than all the lectures he had once given. His students noticed that their teacher now asked more questions than he answered. At first, they were confused. One day, a young student asked, "Master Adrian, after all your years of study, why do you still ask so many questions?" Adrian smiled gently. Then he picked up an empty teacup. Holding it before the class, he said, "Because an empty cup can always receive more." The room fell silent. And in that moment, his students understood a lesson that no book could ever fully teach. Years passed. People continued to travel from distant lands seeking Adrian's wisdom. But those who met him no longer admired him because he seemed to know everything. They admired him because he was humble enough to keep learning. He had finally discovered what all his years of study had failed to teach him. Knowledge can fill the mind. But only humility can open the heart. And perhaps that is the lesson many of us need today. We enter new relationships carrying the wounds of old ones. We begin new opportunities expecting the failures of our past. We judge people before hearing their stories because we believe we already know who they are. We cling to opinions so tightly that we leave no room for understanding. Sometimes, the greatest obstacle to our growth is not ignorance. It is the belief that we already have all the answers. Emptying your cup does not mean forgetting everything you have learned. It means letting go of your need to always be right. It means having the courage to say, "Maybe there is something here I have not yet understood." In Japan, there is a beautiful concept called shoshin, which means the beginner's mind. A beginner approaches life with curiosity, openness, and wonder. An expert often sees only what they already expect to see. The more certain we become, the fewer possibilities we notice. Real growth is not always about adding more knowledge. Sometimes, it is about unlearning the beliefs that no longer serve us, releasing the fears that keep us trapped, and making enough space for a wiser, calmer version of ourselves to finally emerge. So before you leave, I want to ask you one simple question. What are you holding on to so tightly that it is preventing you from receiving something better? Is it an old grudge? A painful memory? A fear of failure? A limiting belief about yourself? Or perhaps the constant need to appear strong, successful, or always correct? Whatever it is, maybe today is the day to set it down. Because the peace you have been searching for may not come from finding another answer. It may come from finally making room for one. If this story spoke to your heart, I'd love to hear from you. Share in the comments one belief, fear, or burden you're ready to let go of. Your words may encourage someone else who is carrying the very same weight. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Howard's channel, and share this message with someone who needs to hear it today. Thank you for spending these moments with me. Until we meet again, stay humble, stay curious, keep your heart open, and never forget to leave a little space in your cup. If this story inspired you, don't forget to subscribe to this channel, like, and share this story. Thanks for watching.